In a peaceful cemetery on a cloudy day, an elderly man visits his late wife's grave. As he mourns his loss, he notices a stranger standing nearby, a woman he has never seen before. To his surprise, he hears her whispering something, and as he listens closely, he catches the words, "I'm sorry." What is she saying sorry for? This lady might have been unknown to Humphreys, but it was very clear that she had known his late wife, Margaret. Whatever she was apologizing for, it felt very much heartfelt. Humphreys really wanted to know what this was about, but getting an answer out of the young lady was not easy. But old man Humphreys was not going to be deterred by a bit of stubbornness. He would not rest until he knew the truth about the relationship between the lady and his late wife, and eventually he was rewarded with the answer he was looking for. The words the lady spoke to him felt like daggers through his heart. How could his wife have possibly kept this a secret from him for all those years? But who was this unknown young lady? How did she know Humphrey's wife Margaret, and why was she saying sorry to her grave? But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Like any other Sunday, Humphrey visited the grave of his wife. It was a joyful moment for the old man. Every once in a while, his daughter and her children would come along, but not this time. He followed his routine like usual. Some lunch around the corner, buying some flowers, and then off to the cemetery. But little did Humphrey know, this was no regular Sunday. Humphrey got out of his car, greeted the gardener, and continued to walk toward the grave. He brings the flowers up to his nose, causing him to lift his head a little. Because of this, he's looking in the direction of his wife's grave, where he sees the strange lady near the grave of his wife. Humphrey slows down once he realizes she could be visiting his wife's grave. At this point, Humphrey can't see her exact location yet, and he's even more unsure when he notices that the lady is talking. Humphrey is hesitant and doubts whether he followed the right path to his wife's grave. But he wasn't wrong, and he'd soon find out. After checking once more whether he took the right path, Humphrey gets closer and sees the lady with her back turned to him, looking over the grave of his wife. Somehow, he is pleasantly surprised. It made him happy to realize he wasn't the only one visiting his wife. But Humphrey's happiness was to disappear, unfortunately. Humphrey Friendly asks the lady, "Pardon me, madam, who are you?" But no answer. Humphrey repeats his question, this time a bit louder and while standing next to her. The woman looks at him with watery eyes and responds, a bit hesitant and with a foreign accent. "Does that matter, sir?" So Humphrey tells her, somewhat surprised, that he's the husband. The lady loudly sighs and seems shocked. She looks Humphrey straight in the eyes before looking back at the grave, and when she looks back at Humphrey, she's crying. What she did next was even more surprising to Humphrey. She wipes away her tears and bends down to the grave. It all seems extremely intimate as she brings her face close to the grave. At this point, Humphrey is getting closer to see what it is that she's doing. When he gets closer, he hears her whispering, "I'm sorry," and then, "Really, I'm sorry." Humphrey asks her what she's sorry for, but doesn't get the answer he's expecting. The lady rapidly stands up and starts running away. Humphrey tries to follow her, but considering his age, is no longer able to run. She gets away, and Humphrey is lost for words. Who was this lady? How did she know his wife, while her accent clearly gave away she wasn't from here? The next Sunday, Humphrey naturally goes to the grave again. But unlike his visit, the past week had not been like usual. He was completely obsessed with the unknown lady and somewhat scared of what it might mean. He understood, and he was right, that the lady would probably return to the cemetery at some point. This time, Humphrey was going a bit earlier than usual. After all, she was there before him last Sunday. He doesn't spot her and goes to lunch. He decides to sit by the window instead of his regular spot in order to have a clear view of the street. And sure, just after finishing his lunch, he spots something. He sees a woman who very closely resembles the woman from last week. He gets up right away, promises the waiter he'll pay later, and gets after the woman. Humphrey spots a familiar woman walking toward the cemetery, his old eyes still sharp. But as she enters, she turns left instead of right. Confused, he follows, only to realize she isn't the woman he saw last Sunday. Apologizing, he retreats to his wife's grave, questions swirling in his mind. Determined to find the truth, Humphrey leaves a poster at the cemetery gate, asking the mystery woman to contact him. Days later, his phone rings. "Are you the man who left the poster?" a woman asks hesitantly. When Humphrey confirms, she abruptly warns him to stay away from the cemetery and hangs up before he can respond. Shaken but undeterred, Humphrey returns that Sunday, this time with his daughter. Over lunch, he spots the woman again and urges his daughter to follow him. At the grave, they approach cautiously. The woman notices them and, upon seeing Humphrey's daughter, rushes forward, embracing her tightly. To his shock, his daughter hugs her back, sobbing. Who was she? Why did she know his daughter and wife but not him? The weight of unspoken truths filled the air. Isabella's tear-filled eyes met Eleanor's as if trying to bridge the years of separation. Humphrey, standing apart, felt like a stranger in his own story. Finally, breaking the silence, Eleanor whispered, "Dad, this is Isabella." Their voices seemed to echo in the vastness of the cemetery. "We were close, very close, during our school days." Isabella gave a timid smile, nodding in affirmation. The bond between the two was undeniable, yet the mystery deepened for Humphrey. If they had been so close, why was Isabella a stranger to him? As the memories flooded back, Eleanor and Isabella laughed amidst their tears, reminiscing about school plays, sleepovers, and shared secrets. Their closeness was evident in every shared glance, every touch. Humphrey watched, an outsider to their shared history, feeling a growing urge to know more about Isabella's past. Isabella took a deep breath and began. She was born in a land torn by civil unrest. Her father, a journalist, went missing when she was a toddler, forcing her mother to flee with her to the U.S., seeking safety. The transition was harsh: new language, unfamiliar culture, and loneliness. Struggling to survive, Isabella and her mother faced homelessness and prejudice. One rainy afternoon, Eleanor found Isabella crying outside their school. Offering her umbrella, she listened to Isabella's story, forming a bond that would last a lifetime. Eleanor introduced Isabella to her mother, Margaret, a compassionate woman who ensured Isabella received an education. Margaret became a mentor, welcoming them into her home, teaching them English, and sharing American traditions. As Isabella's mother fell ill, a mysterious benefactor covered medical bills and rent. Only later did Isabella discover it was Margaret, who kept it secret from Humphrey. Eleanor thrived in academia, while Isabella took on multiple jobs to care for her mother. Despite life pulling them apart, their friendship endured. One evening, Isabella's mother expressed a longing to return home before her final days. Torn between staying and fulfilling her mother's wish, Isabella made the difficult decision to leave the U.S. On her last day, she visited Margaret. Words failed them. They embraced in silent gratitude. Margaret whispered, "You have a family here too." Returning home, Isabella found solace in familiar surroundings despite economic hardships. Each month, Margaret's letters arrived, filled with updates on Eleanor and reminders that Isabella still had a home in the U.S. Then came a letter in Eleanor's handwriting. Margaret had passed away. The news struck like a dagger. Grief overwhelmed Isabella, but amidst her sorrow, she made a vow. One day, she would return to honor the woman who had changed her life. Years passed. Isabella worked tirelessly, saving for her journey back. Every coin brought her closer to the moment she could stand at Margaret's resting place and say the goodbye she never had the chance to. At nights, Isabella dreamed of Margaret, the weight of her absence pressing on her. Guilt for not being there in Margaret's last moments haunted her, but her determination to return never wavered. Setting foot in America again, a flood of memories washed over Isabella. The city had changed, yet its essence remained familiar. Her heart pounded as nostalgia gripped her. Margaret's gravesite was adorned with fresh flowers, a testament to her enduring love. Kneeling, Isabella let her tears flow, whispering apologies for lost time. Walking through town, Isabella noticed a poster, Humphrey searching for memories of Margaret. Seeing it stirred a storm of emotions. She tried to remain unnoticed, but fate had other plans. At the gravesite once more, she found Eleanor and Humphrey standing there. Their eyes met, confusion, recognition, and unspoken emotions filling the silence. Isabella shared Margaret's generosity. "She was there when no one else was," she whispered, regret evident. Humphrey listened, realizing there was a part of his wife's life he never knew. The weight of the past softened as Eleanor and Isabella rekindled their friendship. Laughing through tears, they embraced their shared memories, determined to honor Margaret's legacy. To continue Margaret's spirit of giving, they founded Margaret's Haven, a foundation aiding immigrants. As they unveiled its plaque, they knew her kindness would touch countless lives. Over time, grief was replaced by gratitude. Humphrey, once lost in solitude, found warmth in Eleanor and Isabella, who embodied Margaret's spirit. The city's buzz became music to Isabella's ears. With a fulfilling job and a home filled with laughter, she embraced the future, guided by memories of Margaret and her mother. Evenings at Eleanor's were spent reminiscing. "Remember Margaret's baking disaster?" Isabella laughed. Eleanor smiled, wiping away a tear. Their stories became a cherished ritual. Time passed. Humphrey, his hair silvered, found comfort in Eleanor and Isabella, who became his family. When he passed, they stood side by side, mourning but grateful. His gravestone stood beside Margaret's, a testament to love, kindness, and the lasting impact of a generous heart. Eleanor and Isabella, bound by shared history, were living proof that kindness echoes through time.